There's this large judgment. His attorney, Alina Haba, who's gotten a lot of attention. She's a good-looking attorney, and she's kind of like very much been proud of that. She's like, if I can choose between being good-looking or smart, I'd choose good-looking because you could always basically fake being smart. Well, she did not fake being smart. She got completely annihilated in this case.
LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down. LawFlip, objection, Your Honor. Turn the game upside down.
Okay, so we are back, LawFlip. So before we get to our normal legal stories and our normal episode, some housekeeping. First of all, let's introduce Josh. So, Josh, how do you pronounce your last name?
Dominelli.
So Josh is our producer. He's helping me put this podcast together. I stole him from my friend D from the group chat podcast, who I also gave him my old producer who went to group chat. And then Josh replaced that producer, Ariane, who you guys remember hearing. And so now Josh is working on the two hottest podcasts in the world, group chat and LawFlip. So basically getting a podcast up and running, it's a whole process, because if you want to distribute clip, you have to have somebody who helps you film the thing. Then you have to have it get uploaded. Then you have to have it get edited. Then you have to get the distribution done. And you have to figure out what clips you're going to do, what captions you're going to do. So it's a whole thing. But we hadn't done a podcast in about a year and a half, and I was kind of itching to get it together. But we had to get the team right and the distribution model right, because we have like my law firm, which is Smith Law, my personal channel is, Benjy Smith. We have my law firm, Smith Law, the podcast, LawFlip, and then we have the app, LawFlip app, and we have to like basically produce content for all these things. And so that's what's brought us here. Josh, how was your weekend?
It was great.
Yeah? What'd you do?
Just worked, busy, working on some production stuff, working on some editing, getting the final touches ready for this.
Amazing.
So that's all it is. Let's what you get into.
Okay, so this weekend was baseball. It was like America. So I grew up playing baseball, but like watching my kids play baseball is one of the great joys of life. We play at a field on the west side of LA. This was kind of like opening day weekend, and we were at the field for most of the weekend. It's just amazing. Like, you grow up playing baseball, you love it, and then when your kids are doing it, it's just exhilarating. Like even during practice, I'm like pacing up and down, and I think at 40 years old, I think I've basically resolved most of my major life's vices. So I'm like relatively just living a normal life. I work my ass off, and then I'm spending time with my family. But you find yourself having these weird moments where like these weird parts of you creep up. And so I'm at the field and I'm like pacing back and forth during a baseball practice for my son. And I then look at myself, I'm like, what is going on here? It's just crazy. And it's just I don't know, you spend your kid's whole life trying to like prepare them for whatever it is, school and sports and stuff. And then you're just sitting on the sidelines, basically helpless. Like you got to watch your kid basically take the advice and everything that you've taught them over the years and like let go. And so it's exciting. It's nerve wracking. I mean, there's a lot of hot-headed parents just like wanting to yell, but now they have to have these new rules where if a parent gets kicked out, the coach gets kicked out for that game and the next game. So there's a lot of like pressure from the coaches to the parents to stop the nonsense, let the kids be kids. But it's just great. They have the snack shack open. There's barbecue flying. There's music. Not only is there music like for the games in general in between innings, but all the kids have like walk up theme songs now.
Oh, wow.
So my son, like, he wanted me to help him pick a song. I really wanted him to pick his own song. We finally ended up on Lose Yourself, like the Eminem song, and we submit it. And then the woman's like, oh, 2 other people already have that. So, but like the vibe there is like, this is baseball. There's a person that's mowing the dirt, making sure it's like clean, getting the lines clean, and it's official. It's just fun. It's just so fun. I'm sure I'll be on here, next time telling you how pissed off I am about a loss or how excited I am that we won. But it's just really fun. So anyway, that was my weekend. That was mostly my weekend. I was at the field nonstop for practices and games and batting practice and all sorts of stuff. But I want to move into our news stories here. So you know about YSL, right, Josh?
Yeah.
YSL is like the what is it? Young Slime Life is what it's called. It's like there's a guy named Young Thug who's a prolific rapper. What are some of his big hits, Josh? You know?
He has so many hits. He has songs with the late Nipsey Hussle,
Post Malone.
Post Malone, just every major rapper and all the younger rappers coming up now, they look up to Young Thug and what he's been able to do. He kind of break the mold. He of just the whole tough guy. And he was wearing skirts and getting really into high fashion and just doing what he wanted to do creatively. To kind
How
of
does that
really,
work though? I mean, like, not to veer off, but like, it's interesting that the streets allowed for him to do like the whole wearing skirts thing. But I think when you get to a certain level of success, you get to kind of mess around a little bit.
yeah, for sure. And it's just the confidence in himself and what he believed in. And it was, such a powerful thing. Of course, when he first came out with the skirt, there was nothing but backlash. But then how he just was able to continue forward confidently. It's like, this is you guys don't understand. You need to catch up to me. And then 4 or 5 years later, we see like at these big events like the Met Gala, like these big artists wearing skirts but then it's like Dior and then they're making skirts and for men and it's just ahead of his time. He really has a lot of stuff going on. But the YSL was like his kind of like music entity where he had Gunna and he worked with Little Baby and he worked with a lot of people that may or may not have been like in his inner circle of like his team. Like we just talked about baseball. It's his baseball team is YSL.
Yeah. So they ended. I don't know if it was like the end of our podcast run, but I think it was. I think we talked about this like it was basically a year and a half ago. This all kind of unfolded. His entire crew gets wrapped up in these RICO cases and these gang charges, and it's been highly publicized recently. All these trials, fascinating stuff. Like some of his best friends are having to testify. I mean, there's some decent lawyering. It's all been publicized. Like all the court cases have been sort of broadcast live. Mm-hmm. And so there's been this ongoing legal drama because they were charged with basically gang activity. And what's crazy is there's this lawyer, Nicole Fegan, who's a lawyer for one of the defendants in the YSL case. He was part of the case. She was arrested herself for allegedly advising a suspect in a separate case. She found out through court filings that somebody was about to get charged. She wasn't representing him. There's evidence that she reached out to this new suspect to basically tell him to like get rid of evidence, get rid of a phone. I think she basically told him ditch his phone. This is before he got charged. So he was being tracked. So she got charged with basically she was arrested on gang charges, which is she herself is a lawyer. Right. And I took a deep dive into her Instagram. We could show a little of this. I mean, she's actually a pretty legit lawyer. So a lot of people talk online and you never know how they really are as a lawyer in real life. But I saw some clips of judges giving her some good feedback and that she's like a real lawyer. But her online persona is it's very much like playing up her street credibility. And so she is rapping on her Instagram. She is basically what an Instagram would look like if you were living potentially like street life, but she's a lawyer. And so I think it's great, to market yourself in a different way. Just if she was my friend, I would probably tell her to, maybe just tone it down a little bit. But, I don't have a problem with the marketing in general. It's more like this. It seems like she's sort of like taking that life on herself. Right. Now, obviously, she's been charged. The presumption is that she's innocent. But I mean, she just posted this cryptic message on her Instagram, which we could play, where she's like, people play gangsta and pull these games at the same time. That shit is weird. I mean, it's kind of hard to know. Is she talking about like the prosecution that's coming after her? Is she talking about some people in her life? Like, who knows? From the prosecution's perspective, it underscores the narrative of, pervasive criminal activities going on related to YSL and the people surrounding it. And then from her perspective, obviously it raises ethical and legal concerns, but obviously she's innocent until proven guilty. It's just fascinating to see a lawyer. We're going to talk a lot on the show about how lawyers' lives are, what it's like to be a lawyer, the responsibility, the life. This is somebody who seems to be doing pretty well. She has her own firm, which is awesome. It's just, yeah, we're going to have to watch along and see what happens with this case. But you definitely don't, as an attorney, want to be advising your clients to do anything illegal. And there's a lot of gray area in being a lawyer, but like telling a client to basically throw away their phone, if it's true, that would be tampering with the evidence and something we are taught at a very early stage not to do. So it'll be fascinating to watch. We'll keep you up to date with everything that happens with that. So Josh, do you use AI?
I use AI very limitedly right now. With me producing and video editing, all that kind of media side of things, I use it for kind of writing some scripts, getting some basic ideas. There's a whole bunch of apps now that supposedly cut your clips up. With social media being such a big thing, these clips are so valuable for everybody across the board. So there's a bunch of those now. I've tried 4 or 5 of them just to kind of myself some time, and they're all trash still, unfortunately.
Yeah.
They're all trash.
I can see. I mean, it's just video editing. I do video editing myself, and I've always done it to a certain extent. It's such a weird fact about me that people probably would never guess, but like I love editing. It's a very like cathartic, weird process. But I think there's gonna be tools that help you edit video with AI. It's so hard because I think just like everything else, it needs to understand your brain. So once you're able to say that I like quick shots, I like this, I like that, and you could maybe this already exists. I use AI with nonstop. So mostly I use it with Loom, which is a product where you film yourself, you could film yourself talking, you could film yourself on the screen, and then after you're done, it basically creates a transcript. And there's even like a new beta version of Loom where like they basically create the script and kind of help you draft emails to people and stuff. But what I do is I take it, I put it in a chat GPT, and then you could basically do anything with it. I mean, if anybody listening to this doesn't use chat GPT all the time, it's incredible. But anyway, there's this whole concept. There's a new bill in California called SB 1047 that's being proposed as a potential step in favor of regulating AI. So there's going to be this whole argument about like regulating AI and concerns about overregulation. And that's there's a consistent argument with pretty much everything between Republicans and Democrats, like what should be regulated. It's tough for me because on the one hand, I love this tech innovation so much. And like, if you overregulate it, there will be people that are just, one, are going to go to the black market and figure a way around it. But two, it's just going to stifle creativity. I also I think that like AI is it's moving so fast and it's already so gone that like there's only so much that regulators are going to be able to do, in a democratic society to keep this thing down. But basically, those in favor of the bill argue it's a crucial step toward ensuring these technologies are developed with accountability and safeguarding without compromising national security. And if you've messed around at all with AI, I think people that haven't messed around with it don't understand the power of it. Like if you haven't typed into Chat GPT, some crazy request and seen it immediately basically do the thing that you're asking it to do within seconds, you don't understand what we're talking about. And you should be going on a Chat GPT and trying it out to really get an understanding of what people are even talking about. Because if I didn't know what this is talking about, I'd be like, this is boring, next subject. But if you see the power of what you're able to do with AI, it's a force to be reckoned with. This is not like Web 3.0. This is not, talking about NFTs and stuff like that. This is like everyday use in every single field. It is changing the world, and it's going to continue to change the world. So the concern is that it's so powerful that like there were already hackers that can do crazy things. What are people going to be able to do now? Like, is there anything that comes to mind for you that like you would be concerned about? Like, how is this going to affect the world on a day-to-day basis? Or have you not really put much thought into that?
No, I think about it all the time because it's one of those things with just how fast technology is moving now. We talk about AI, and we're like even like on like a side topic, like the Apple Vision Pro.
Right.
That's
Oh
like
my
some
God.
stuff that would come out in the '80s movies, which like in AI's basically could turn into Terminator.
The Apple Vision Pro is insane. I
Yeah.
bought it. I returned it because I just don't think it's ready for prime time. But I will say that the Apple Vision Pro, the moment that I put those things on my head, was the first time since 2000. I think it was 2008 that the iPhone 1 came out.
Hmm.
It was the first time, I guess, in what is that, 16 years that I felt that it was. So let me say it was iPhone 1, 2008, ChatGPT. I think it was last year, and
Last
then the
year.
Apple Vision Pro. So those are the three events in my life where I've seen tech take some advancement that it blew
Oh,
my
the internet
socks
too.
off.
Do you remember the first time you had a computer? You went on the internet.
So that would be, yeah, but that's like, I guess, back to
Yeah.
like probably like 90s
Right.
for
I mean, I
me.
I
Yeah.
remember being very, very little, and my family getting our first computer and just turning it on for the first time was,
Mhm.
something that I remember to this day. Like, I
We had a
mean,
dial. I don't know if you remember like Prodigy. There was
oh,
like these ways to like dial up using this thing called Prodigy, and then of course like AIM and all that stuff. But this is like AI stuff. It needs to be dealt with. Like it would be crazy to say that there's no regulation. It's like if you need a license to drive, if you need to regulate cars moving, if you need to regulate, planes moving, you need to regulate this. This is, the problem is I see this is, being advocated for in California. I don't see how a state can figure this out. This is like a federal issue that needs to be dealt with in the federal government, because you can't like
right.
have one rule about AI in California, one rule about AI in Texas. This needs to be a federal thing. It's just going to be hard to balance I do not want this field to be overregulated, but it's probably the field that most needs to be
Hmm.
regulated.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it should be regulated, but at the same time, I just feel with like how when the government is involved in things, and we're basically leading the way with AI right now. I feel like we're ahead as a
Yeah.
country. And I just feel if we start regulating it, we're just going to stifle development with it and just kind of make it as much as I don't want to see something crazy pop out like Terminator 2 or something like
Right.
that.
It is concerning. I mean, I
Hmm.
just saw on Shark Tank, I saw this guy created like a, high tech arm that is like able to punch harder. I mean, I didn't
Right,
really think a lot of this stuff was going to be possible, but once you start to see the power of it, it
right.
is concerning of like the negative side of it. So anyway, have you seen the Trump legal cases?
Yeah, all of
Obviously.
them. Yeah.
So without getting too political, it's just he had this civil fraud verdict of $355 million, and that doesn't even include interest. I think the interest, somebody said the interest is like, so there's a concept called prejudgment interest. So when you sue somebody, technically when there's a verdict rendered against you, so somebody says that I owe, or somebody owes $1 million, so somebody's saying that you owe that amount, but the argument is that pending that outcome, you should have paid that money to the person whenever it started to be owed. So if the amount of money, 355 million, was owed as of however long ago, there's the interest that's accruing between the time of it owed to the time of the judgment. So it's called pre-judgment interest. So the time that something's owed to the time of the judgment. Then after the judgment gets entered, if it's not paid right away, then you're accruing post-judgment interest. And usually interest is running at 10%. So they're saying that this $355 million judgment, I think, has already incurred like $95 million of interest. And then
Crazy.
going forward, you can imagine 10% of $355 million on a daily basis. It's like, if you did 10%, it's probably $35 million a year. So it's, you're running at a lot of money every month. It's probably something like $3 million a month of interest.
Is prejudgment interest and post-judgment interest different rates?
It's different in different jurisdictions, but it's usually running at a 10%
Just flat?
legal rate. And it just depends on the jurisdiction, but that's a lot. I mean,
Oh
you
yeah,
can't, I mean,
10% of
it's
anything
a,
adds up.
yeah, exactly. So anyway, there's this large judgment. His attorney, Alina Habba, who's gotten a lot of attention. She's a good looking attorney, and she's kind of like very much been proud of that. She's like, if I can choose between being good looking or smart, I'd choose good looking, because you could always basically fake being smart. Well, she did not fake being smart. She got completely annihilated in this case, and everybody, even on the Republican side, everybody watching was like, she had no idea what she was doing. She had a hard time with the evidence. She, like, the judge was basically telling her what to do in terms of like how to introduce evidence, and she's just not built for this type of thing. And Trump is known for kind of finding yes men around him, and there's never going to be a shortage of lawyers who are willing to represent him, but in terms of quality lawyers, he's had a hard time finding that. I think everybody that's around him, somehow he's Teflon. Like, he gets out of these jams, and he gets out of so many jams. But if you look at Rudy Giuliani, you look at this woman, their careers get marred by the reputation, and they just don't have the charm and the ability to wiggle through it like Trump does. She gets she gets her client clobbered in this judgment. She speaks out against the judge who's making the decision before before this judgment comes out. People don't understand, when you go out and you speak negatively about a judge or a jury in the middle of a case, you're not helping your client. Like, this is the person who's going to make these decisions. So there's very effective attorneys who could represent Donald Trump who wouldn't be engaging in this type of stuff. But he chose this lady. So she goes on, and, she says that, she went on Fox News, and they were asking her, like, what is the basis for the appeal? Is there any way for you to get out of this? And she's like, well, we would just argue that the judgment was insane. And, like, that's just not going to work. Like, telling the court of appeal that the judgment was insane, that's not going to work. They obviously need to get real appellate lawyers involved to try to turn this thing around. I don't know what, if any, prospect he has of appealing this thing, but this could really take him down financially, because there's all the talk about how much money he's worth. I don't think he has liquid hundreds of millions of dollars of like this to pay off, and it's going to be fascinating to watch. And the support for the appeal is going to say that this was a result of judicial overreach and possibly tainted by political bias, which I don't think is a crazy argument. I think that a $400 million verdict from supposedly inflating your property's values, where there's not a true victim, I think there is a decent argument there. The problem is, I think the argument didn't work in the trial court, and I don't know how much the appellate court is going to reach in and sort of like that. Usually appellate courts give deference to the trial court. And so it's not to say that they can't. There's a reason why you have appellate courts. It's to turn lower court decisions around, but there has to be a specific basis to do so. And they may just say that, hey, there is enough evidence to make this decision. Now, the criticism of the appeal is that there has not been a great articulation for a legal basis for this thing to be turned around. Everybody sees this as is a delay, a delay to push this payment, but he may have to put up a bond. A bond may be like either the full amount or 10% of the amount. And again, I don't know if Trump has that liquidity. You see, he's used a lot of his campaign's finances to support his legal cases. I don't know that he has the money to do it, but we'll watch as this case gets. I'm fascinated to see what happens with this. There's changes in the political environment. That you have the election coming up. There's precedents for what future battles like this might look like. I will say, just to sort of call it sort of as objectively as I can, I did think that this was motivated by politics. I did think that the entire case was motivated by like a non-politician is not going to have this case. But you live by Trump lives by the gun and dies by the gun. He goes after everybody, goes after everything. He's going to have consequences like this come to him. It's usually been the people around him, but now it's like directly him. I mean, this judgment basically stops him from being able to control his own company, his kids from being able to control his own company. It's a far-reaching judgment. I wonder what's going to happen on the appeal. Another topic is this whole work from home, work in the office. So you're kind of a remote guy, right? You don't have one set office that you go to. You go to your different clients at different offices. You work from home, all that, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically, a lot of the time I am on location, whether it's just the location changes, whether it's the one studio with group chat or I'm on set at a different studio or at an event or, editing at my home office.
Yeah. So there's this article that just came out. It's basically there's a top 50 big law firm cracking down on in-office attendance. Basically, bonuses are on the line if attorneys don't come to the office more often. And I looked into this. This is the firm. This is just an example of like what's the struggle that's happening in the legal field. We've always talked a lot about this. This is a firm called Arnold and Porter. It's a top 50 firm. And I saw they basically have like metrics and monitoring. I mean, there's a lot of like babying these lawyers where they sent out this notification to all the lawyers, like there's tracking, attendance is captured when someone docks their laptop, notifications at the end of each month, everyone will receive an email with their entrance percentage, check-ins. Those with repeated policy non-compliance will receive targeted check-ins from their practice chairs. So this is not crazy, right? This is like what's probably happening at every major company around the world. I think the challenge is that there's a cross section of running a business, which this law firm is doing, and the egos of attorneys. So everybody understood before the pandemic that you had to kind of, if you were in Biglaw, you had to kind of live this life where you go into the office and everything's tracked. And I think what happened was after the pandemic, everybody realized that you could still be effective working from home and using technology and all that. And I think that the big firms are getting concerned that these attorneys are having more freedom and doing whatever they want to do. So there's this big crackdown. I myself have an office that I come into, but I'm sort of developed myself in the Tim Ferriss kind of like virtual model where I can work from anywhere. I think that ultimately that's what people want. That's what lawyers want. Like obviously, if you're working at a job that requires you to be in person, you need to be in person, right? Like a fast food worker needs to be on site. But like when you're in the sort of knowledge economy and you're an attorney and there's nothing that's preventing you from working sort of at home. I think there's a big power struggle right now. Like these firms, they want to have sort of the oversight of these attorneys, and then there's the attorneys that are like, hey, I've graduated law school, I've passed the bar, and I know how to get stuff done, and I'm responsible and I can do it from home, and I don't need to drive an hour traffic, which I could be using to bill or do something else. I could do this from home. And so there's just a big power struggle with the attorneys and their firms. And that's why a lot of attorneys, it's really hard right now for law firms to find attorneys to hire, because a lot of attorneys are just sick of this. They're sick of being babied by their firms. They want to have their own opportunity to do stuff. So there's a lot of lawyers who are just starting their own firms. And it's great because I think that the law, like the big law model, is kind of like the old yellow taxis. Like something needed to break. There was no way that it was going to keep on going exactly like it is. And I think that there's a revolution of attorneys starting to understand like they can run their own businesses, they can work from home, they can have more flexibility in running their lives than what they're used to. And so it's going to be interesting to see how these big firms fold. There's obviously the arguments in favor of having people come into the office. They're going to be more, arguably they could be there. Somebody just cited some statistic to me that people that come into the office are 35% more productive than they don't. I don't know. I think there's obviously some argument to that. You're at home, you have your kids, you have different things going on at the house. You may want to watch some Netflix. I don't know. I don't have that because I just come in here and I do my thing. But and I'm just motivated. Yeah, I do think this is going to have an impact on recruitment and retention. I think that attorneys, they don't want to have Big Brother looking at them, but it's tough because a lot of attorneys, they're solely motivated to make money. And the best way to do that, if you're not going to start your own firm, is probably being in big law. And so I think that there's going to be this balance of people that want the money from big law, but don't want to have this oversight and they want to work from home. So it's going to be really interesting to watch how the recruitment and retention works. And obviously monitoring and compliance, like attorneys have a lot of ego, and I don't know that they're going to want to have them. Sure, they will have metrics on how many billable hours I have, but when I checked in to my system and when I checked out, and that level of oversight might be just too much for attorneys to handle. So yeah, we'll see. Moving on to legal tip of the week. I'm going to explain to you in this legal tip what you're required to do after you lose a job. So after you lose a job, you are required to make a reasonable effort to find a new comparable job. This is known as mitigating damages. So some of the things that people look at is after you get fired, you come to an attorney like me, and a lot of attorneys may even tell their clients, hey, you know what? Don't rush to get a new job, because if you get a new job, that will cut off some of your damages. And so a lot of times clients come to me and they're like, hey, I shouldn't really get a new job yet, right? And I always tell my clients, absolutely go get a new job for two reasons. One is the law requires you to make a reasonable effort to find a new comparable job. And how do they know that? The evidence will come out that you were actively looking for new jobs. You were updating your resume, you were networking, you were applying for jobs, you were attending interviews. It's not just about finding a job, it's about like your effort to go get one. If you don't do that and you're in court and you're in front of a jury and you basically say, yeah, I was eating bonbons and sitting around and doing nothing, the court can give the jury an instruction to say that if the jury finds that you were not actively trying to find a job, that whatever damages you're claiming can be reduced. So like if you would have found a job, Josh, like you get fired and then you could have found a job and the jury thinks that you could have found a job, the judge can give an instruction to the jury to say this person's damages should be lower. So that's one reason. Another reason is I never tell my clients to do things. This isn't me being like some great guy, but this is just how I feel. I never tell my clients to do things just for a case, because if they do, there's two potential consequences. One is you will screw up your life just to fit into a potential good case, right? Like you're basically saying, like, let's just say you could make your case better by not having a job after you get fired. You're basically saying like this case is worth me screwing up my professional career and slowing down, and let me just have my career on hold while I potentially get the benefit of it. I don't believe in that. You should move your life forward in the best way possible and let the results take care of itself. The other thing is, a lot of times when you try to artificially create a good case, things come out. If you're doing something artificially and not genuinely, something will show, right? And something will show in the evidence. If you're getting cross-examined, they're going to say, why didn't you do it? And you're going to have to basically lie. And it'll end up damaging your case. So very much believe in effectively mitigating your damages by going to get a job as soon as possible after you get fired. And you get control over your future, and it's a positive mindset, which is something I very much believe in. I have a 15-minute deep dive on the subject of mitigating damages for anybody that's interested. It's about employees mitigating damages after they've been terminated or they've been forced to quit. And you can find it on the Smith Law social media channels and YouTube. After you get fired or after you've been forced to quit, you should actively look for a job. You should not be sitting around and waiting and twiddling your thumbs. You should absolutely go and get another job. You may not be able to, but you certainly need to try. Okay, this was really fun. Josh, thanks for joining and helping get this thing started up. This is what our episodes are going to probably be most like. If you can, like, share, subscribe. You can catch all full-length podcasts on everywhere you find podcasts, like Apple, Spotify, etc. YouTube is the video version, so you can check us out there. And then we want to hear from you. We want to hear feedback. We want to hear comments. We want to hear what you like, what you don't like, what you want to hear more of, any cases you want us to cover, any topics you want us to cover. We want to provide a show that's informative, entertaining, fun. So just be in touch with us, and we look forward to doing more of these. We're going to be filling your feed with tons of content going forward on all social media platforms. And we don't want you to use too much social media in your life, but we want you to use just enough to watch all of our stuff. All right, have a good week. We'll talk to you soon.